When the Wii's hardware specs were announced, gamers were floored. Why, they wondered, would Nintendo come out with a system with hardware only marginally better than that of the current generation? When Wii titles began coming out with graphics that didn't even hit the heights of the last generation, they were even more confused, and no one seemed ready to explain why the developers were treating the Wii, with capabilities past the original Xbox, like it was a Nintendo 64. High Voltage planned on fixing this with the Conduit, a title they promised would show the capabilities of the Wii while delivering a solid shooter experience. For better or worse, they've done what they set out to do, and the Conduit emerges as a perfect example of the Wii's strengths and limitations. Earth is being invaded. The Drudge, an alien race, is flooding the planet through conduits, which serve as portals between the worlds. Players control Mr. Ford, a government agent tasked with ending the invasion, who unravels all manners of conspiracies and plot twists. Early in the game, Ford collects the All-Seeing Eye, or ASE, which serves as an all-purpose device that can be used to unlock doors, hack computer terminals, destroy mines, decipher hidden messages, and guide him along the game's levels. To say it's a Deus Ex Machina isn't an overstatement, but its place in the game is established early enough that it becomes a welcome inclusion to Ford's arsenal. The 6 to 8 hour campaign lacks any real boss battles, instead pitting Ford against a number of overly difficult enemy encounters as a replacement. Thankfully, there are a number of different enemies encountered throughout the game, keeping the frequent corridor shootouts somewhat fresh. Conduit's plot isn't necessarily its strong point, and it feels as though the game's story could have been deeper as to create a more fleshed out universe. The writing on the walls, as deciphered by the ASE, hints at more story opportunities, but none are ever explored, making them more mysterious at best and utter nonsense at worst. Developers have failed to adequately take advantage of the Wii's hardware when it comes to shooting games. The Conduit doesn't make that mistake. It controls fairly well, with only a few hitches in the design. Aiming is as simple as pointing at the screen, melee is executed with a simple wiggle of the remote, and throwing grenades is mapped to a shake of the nunchuck. Most of the time it all works fairly well, but the Wii's tendency to interpret subtle motions as bigger gestures means that grenades will often be thrown accidentally, and pistol whips can often occur by mistake. Enemy AI varies from room to room, either proving itself reasonably intelligent or barely capable of holding a weapon. It's a bit silly when some soldiers will take cover or flank, while the others spend a lot of their time standing behind Ford, forgetting to fire their weapons. It's as though half of the game's foes are tactical geniuses, while the other half are bumbling idiots. Thankfully, the Conduit has a large variety of weapons to use against those enemies, including one that has Ford shoving his fist up an alien's rectum to fire and force-feeding it pellets to reload. Needless to say, it's one of the premier shooters on the Wii. High Voltage has done a fantastic job showing what is possible with the Wii when a developer actually commits itself to the console. Sadly, the answer isn't as much as you'd hope. Claims that the graphics would reach that of early Xbox 360 titles don't pan out, and the game is likely outperformed in some areas by a number of last-generation titles. For a Wii game, it's likely one of the best looking, but saying much more than that is really stretching the truth. Former Battlestar Galactica and Firefly actor Mark Shepard voices the game's protagonist, the mysterious Mr. Ford. Sadly, despite Shepard's contributions, Ford is about as deep and well developed in the Conduit as a deck of cards is in a poker game. He's just the thing you play the game with. He has dialogue, and it's well spoken, but there's no depth to his words.
Alright, Prometheus, what's going on here? First you try to kill me and now you're helping me? Whose side are you on, really?
The other characters in the game are generally well voiced and acted, but Ford is never given enough personality to become a likable protagonist, something that could have propelled the game much farther. Proving that the Wii's online system is better than most give it credit for, the Conduit hosts a suite of multiplayer options to choose from. With up to 12 players, gamers can engage in a number of different modes, most of which work seamlessly over Wii Connect 24. The notorious friend codes return, but aren't as much of an issue as it might seem. Thankfully, the Wii dips at least one foot into the current generation with in-game voice chat using the Wii Speak microphone. It's nothing revolutionary, but it shows yet again that most companies are simply being lazy when it comes to development for the Wii. It's not an incredibly polished experience though, and suffers from occasional spikes of lag as well as other glitches that can occasionally make the game a bit of a struggle. The Conduit had a lot to prove, and it was successful in many regards. In the same way that Killzone 2 showed what was possible with the PlayStation 3, the Conduit shows what the Wii is capable of. The difference is, in the Wii's case, it really isn't all that much. Even so, High Voltage managed to make a solid title within the limitations, and will hopefully take note of their game's issues and improve upon them, continuing to make Wii owners proud to play their console. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out the full text review on Gamervision.com.